The Wuhan virus pandemic. Never let a serious crisis go to waste. This virus is cover for an economic meltdown in the United States. It's actually global, but we're sticking with the United States right now since we don't have time to cover the whole world. This virus is a great cover and a great excuse from a brilliant mind, I'm sure, who planned this many, many years ago, to gently collapse the economy in the United States and take care of the little people, unlike what happened with the mortgage financial meltdown in 2007, 2008. None of us little people were taken care of, only the big global banks and Wall Street. Well, that's a change in this time. This is a predictive video on transiting Uranus, moving through the sign Taurus, the sign of the banker, the sign of the financier. And we're going to be looking at more articles because I am presenting through these series of videos overwhelming evidence of the financial collapse in many areas, and particularly banking around the world. So hi, I'm JJ from Paranormal Talks, paranormaltalks.com. Let me show you our website and we'll get into the other stuff. Here's our website. We are educational. We fill the educational gap that our government schools and universities will not touch. It's a huge area of educational lack that really hurts us throughout life. So we fill that gap. If you want to know more about me, just click on About Us, scroll down, and you can read about me. Now, this is the bad boy we were talking about. This is Uranus. The first video of this series, I talked a lot about Uranus, the planet Uranus, and I talked a lot about the constellation sign Taurus. I'm not going to go over all that now, but here's the bad boys. A circle with a dot in the middle and then with a arrow pointing up. Now this planet, Uranus, this is a planet. Every planet has its own meaning and it does its own thing. The sun does its thing, the moon does its thing, Mercury does its thing. Well, Uranus does its thing too, only on a much broader scale than some of these, what we call smaller planets. This is the planet of radical change and destruction. And it is sudden, it is fast. It cold cocks you, it ambushes you. There's no warning, it's not gentle, it doesn't tell you, here I come. This is change you can believe in. Because believe me, this is in play and it will have its way with us for the next 8 years until June of 2026. So we're going through some of the first shakeups, the first earthquakes of Uranus moving through the constellation sign Taurus, the sign of the banker, the sign of the financier, the sign that rules money, wealth, jewels, gold, silver, copper, palladium. That's Taurus. And Uranus, the one who shakes and bakes, is moving through that constellation sign. And it's having its way with us, is it not? So let's look at some articles on how that is happening. By the way, the planet Uranus is the planet of humanity. It's not about just the elitists. It's not about just the royals who like to rule us in the various countries, who we love to have rule us because we don't know any better. We can't figure it out ourselves. We're such little stupid people. Obviously, that's why we need royal people, right? Uranus is the planet of humanity. It wants the good for everyone. It wants everyone taken care of in a very high, fine way. So that's Uranus. Let's look at some of these articles. Now this financial crisis, unlike the previous one in 2008, where we were not taken care of, this is a bit different. Trump budget cuts IRS funding by almost $240 million. By the way, budget cuts of the IRS, that has been ongoing for a decade or more, several decades, and it really upsets the IRS, but so what? What? They're not adding anything to the economy. They actually steal from us. So this article was written by American for tax Americans for Tax Reform, March 16th, 2017. So Trump started right off on that, as promised, right away. Let's look a little bit at this. The IRS, and the IRS has been studied and audited and reported on for many, many years. And that's probably why they keep getting their budget cut. And by the way, as part of this financial meltdown in the United States, the IRS will go away. So the IRS has failed to spend taxpayer resources wisely. Duh. IRS boss John, what's his name, and other IRS officials have claimed the agency is underfunded. One even claimed that the agency was struggling to keep the lights on. I doubt that. But the facts say otherwise. We like facts, do we not? Fact check with the facts. The IRS has proven time and time again that it cannot be trusted to wisely spend taxpayer dollars. In fact, the IRS is unable to justify its spending decisions, according to a report by the Independent National Taxpayer Advocate. The IRS, quote, the IRS has come under scrutiny by external oversight organizations who have questioned the IRS's rationale for its budget decisions. They have not been satisfied with the IRS's response to their inquiries. Go figure. Well, that's pretty consistent. The IRS is very consistent. But again, remember, the planet Uranus moved into the sign Taurus in May of 2018. This article was published about a year before that. We begin to feel the tremors when these changes happen, when these planets move from one constellation sign into another. And this is simply a sign of that, of the financial meltdown in the United States and the total collapse and destruction. And that's the correct word. I'm sticking with that word. The destruction of the economy and the system, the financial system in the United States. Let's look at another article. The Daily Informer. Q, look at this interesting logo, Q. The Federal Reserve, the question is the Federal Reserve being absorbed by the Treasury? The answer is yes, unequivocally, yes. This is part of the destruction of the American financial system. This article published March 26, 2020. Let's look at a little bit of a blurb here. So a Bloomberg writer, a Bloomberg author, lists the following programs and their intended functions that the Federal Reserve does, which is many, many functions. They buy commercial paper from the issuer. They buy corporate bonds from the issuer. And these are all programs with their acronyms. Funding backstop for asset-backed securities. Buying corporate bonds and corporate ETFs, electronic traded funds, in the secondary market. Details are to come, but it will lend to eligible small, medium-sized businesses, complementing efforts by the Small Business Association. Quote, the Fed is not allowed to do any of these programs. The central bank, the Federal Reserve is a central bank of the United States, is only allowed to purchase or lend against securities that have government guarantee. By the way, that's false, but let's go with it for now. This includes Treasury securities, agency mortgage-backed securities, and the debt issued by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. An argument can be made that can also include municipal securities, but nothing in the laundry list above. Now, let me mention, and I've read a lot about this on the ArmstrongEconomics.com website and the history of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was created as a central bank to support other banks in the country, and they were only to buy corporate bonds. That is to keep corporations, businesses stable so they could keep their employees. But in 17, Congress changed all of that up, unbeknownst to us, and said, well, central bank, you must now buy only government debt, only government bonds, which is backed by you and I, the little people, not by businesses. So they totally upended the whole purpose of the central bank, the Federal Reserve. So it's going back to what it was intended for. So that's one nifty article. Let's look at another one. Explained. Okay, so this article is going to explain something to us. By the way, the information is from the Associated Press. That's sort of a CIA pipeline that dumps its information like this into these articles. So we'll take a look at it anyway. It's published March 16th, 2020. Didn't I highlight? Oh, the highlighting disappeared. Okay, so to answer that question, what did the Federal Reserve do Sunday and why? So this happened on the 16th, March 16th, 2020, last month. The Fed slashes benchmark rate to nearly zero. Now, the Federal Reserve has been playing and manipulating, slicing and dicing interest rates that screw the rest of us for quite a long time now. And they're being taken out of that position. But anyway, they slashed the benchmark rate to nearly zero. The Fed cut the short-term rate by a full percentage point, its steepest cut since the financial crisis in 2008, to a range of zero, that is 0.25%. That is the lowest level since December 2015, when the Fed raised rates for the first time after leaving them at nearly zero for 7 years. Over time, this move should lower a broad range of borrowing costs for things like homes, credit cards, and autos. Okay, that's addressing all of us little people. So that's nice, at least. Powell, in charge of the Federal Reserve, said that while the move is intended to lower borrowing costs now, it would become even more important once the outbreak passes, once the financial collapse passes, maybe. We have until 2026 for this to play out. It would become even more important once the outbreak passes and consumers and businesses confident enough to ramp up spending again. President Trump has urged the Fed to consider cutting rates below zero, but Powell said the Fed isn't considering that now. Now, this is an interesting comment. This guy, Mark, a rate strategist at B of A Securities, said that in this case, the Fed won't be seen as bailing out banks as they did with TARP in 2008, the Troubled Asset Act, where only the banks and Wall Street got the goodies, not us. But in this case, the Fed won't be seen as bailing out banks that crashed the economy through excessive mortgage lending with all their CDOs and stuff. Let's look at another article. This is from a very official site, a trusted site, maybe not, but it's the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. It's the central bank of the U.S. and provides the nation with a safe, flexible, and stable monetary and financial system. Now, do you believe that? Do you believe that? I mean, it's right there. It says it right there. Do you believe that is a trusted source? This article, written March 15th, 2020, Federal Reserve actions to support the flow of credit to households and businesses. My goodness, we haven't seen this like ever in the United States. This is a collapse, destruction of the current banking system. The Federal Reserve is carefully monitoring credit markets and is prepared to use its full range of tools to support the flow of credit to households and businesses and thereby promote its maximum employment and price stability goals. Well, how stable has it been up until this point, y'all? In addition to actions taken by the Federal Open Market Committee, including actions taken in coordination with other central banks, the Federal Reserve Board announced a series of actions in support of these goals. These actions are summarized below. on and on and on. There's the discount window, there's the intraday credit, there's the bank capital and liquidity buffers, which I'm very suspicious about these buffers, and reserve requirements. And that's kind of a joke. Anyway, it sounds as though Trump is loading up the Federal Reserve with a bunch of debt, and it will crush the Federal Reserve and it will go away. Let's look at one last inspiring short video. Now, all of this is what it looks like to carry on a revolution, a financial revolution, which will free all of us little people. It's, and a lot of it does come from Europe. QAnon, that is QAnon, Austin Steinbart. I've checked him out. Austin Q. He certainly appears to be the real deal. The royalty of England is our common enemy, whether you're Democrat, progressive, liberal, socialist, Republican, conservative, redneck, whatever that is. All of these names I've just listed, we have one common enemy, and it's comes from Europe, actually. And we fought and we died to free ourselves from those tyrants, sort of. I guess we didn't do such a good job because look, we're back again. And we don't want to go through this again, but this is what it looked like before. This is a bit inspiring, and it is from the Austin Steinbart website. Let me stop this so we can take a look at it and hear it. Okay.
I watch them fight and die in the name of freedom. They speak of liberty and justice, but for who?
And there we go. Very nice, very inspirational. So this is what we're fighting for, is that type of freedom from that type of tyranny. It's more like the tyranny of bankers, the bloodsuckers who suck our energy, our labor, our time. So I hope you liked it. So this is JJ from Paranormal Talks, and we'll talk to you next time in the next and the last video. Take care. Bye.